in Bahasa Indonesia, we don't have such things. In fact, in English, we have to be very careful in agreeing between the subject and the verbs, especially the auxiliary verbs. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Welcome back to my class, English Grammar Proficiency, the third meeting. Well, in this third meeting, our topic is about subject-verb agreement. Well, talking about subject-verb agreement is like when someone is shaking hands with other person. So one is the subject and the other is the verb, and they agrees with each other. So there is big problem in among Indonesian students about this subject-verb agreements. Why? Because in Bahasa Indonesia, we don't have such things. In fact, in English, we have to be very careful in agreeing between the subject and the verbs, especially the auxiliary verbs. As you know, there are various kinds of auxiliary verbs in English, but there are only 4 auxiliary verbs that cause problems in subject-verb agreement among Indonesian students. What are those auxiliary verbs? They are the first, the group of be, something like is, am, are, and then was, were, and then the other auxiliaries, do and does, and also have and has. Some Indonesian students get confused in agreeing between the subject and those auxiliaries. So before we learn further about the subject-verb agreement, we need to know the kinds of subject. Okay, so actually, there are 6 types of subjects in English grammar. They are noun as subject, and then pronoun as subject, and then to infinitive as subject, gerund as subject, impersonal subject, and demonstrative subject. So let's see one by one. Okay, let's first talk about the noun as subject. In this type of subject, so noun are divided into 4 types of noun. Yeah, the first is singular noun. So when it is singular, it refers to one noun or one thing only, and this must be singular. When we deal with singular, so we refer to the singular auxiliary, something like is, and then was, and then does, and then has. Be careful with that. And when there is singular noun, there is also plural noun. When we refer to plural noun, just think easily, this is the same as the word they. So they refers to plural. That's why it must agree with the auxiliary for plural. Something like are, and then were, and then do, and then have. The third type of noun subject is the collective nouns. When we refer to collective nouns, so we have to think on the side of the writer, whether the writer refer to singular or plural. For example, in the example sentence, like the band is performing dynamically. Here, the band is regarded as one unit, so it is regarded as singular collective noun. So it agrees with the auxiliary verb is. But when the writer thinks that the band refers to the group of person, the members of the group, so it refers to plural collective nouns. That's why the auxiliary also are regarding the auxiliary for the plural, something like are, were, do, and have. For example, the band are rehearsing now. So in this example, the band refer to the group of people, maybe 4 people, 5 people, so they are the same as plural noun. Okay. And the third type of noun subject is irregular plural noun. So we have to be extra careful when we deal with irregular plural noun because there is no es or s ending for this. And we have to think also in the side of the writer. So for example, the fish is called gurame. In this sentence, the writer referred to a single fish. So the auxiliary verb that agrees is the word is. But when the sentence is the fish are restless, so the writer of the sentence refers to the group of fish, even though there is no es ending. That's why the agreement is by using auxiliary are, because the fish here means or refers to the group of fish. In the pond, maybe, in the pool, yeah, in the aquarium. Okay, that is about noun as subject. Okay, now we come to the second type of subject, which is called pronoun as subject. So, I think you still remember when you study grammar 1, the type of word or the class of word, and you know the word pronoun refers to the word that replaces a noun. So here we have the word I, and then he, she, we, they, you, and then it. I'm sure you know well which pronoun refer to singular and which pronoun refer to plural. That's why you need to agree the pronoun with the auxiliary. Something like the pronoun I agrees with the auxiliary am, was, do, and have. And then the pronoun he, she, and it agree with the auxiliary is, was, does, and has, etc. Up to the pronoun plural, something like we, they, you, they must agree with the auxiliary are, were, do, and have. This is something simple actually, but you need to be very careful when you deal with the sentence. Sometimes Indonesian people get ignorance about this because we don't have this kind of thing in our language. This is the interruption of background language of the learner. Okay, now we come to the third type of subject, that is infinitive subject, to infinitive subject. So this subject started with the word to and then followed by verb. Can it be a subject? Yes, it can. For example, in the sentence, to say is easy, but to do is difficult. You see that the word to say is the subject of the sentence. And the appearance of the to infinitive is only one. To say, this is one word, right? So it is the same as singular. That's why it must agree with the auxiliary that refers to singular. Something like is, and then was, and then does, and then has. In the sentence, to say is easy, but to do is difficult. Both of the subject, to say and to do, it refers to singular, to infinitive subject. It will be different when there are series of to infinitive appearing in a sentence. Something like to love, to feed, to protect, and to educate are our parents' duties. So there are 4 appearances of to infinitive in the subject: to love, to feed, to protect, and to educate. That's why it is the same as the word they. And the word they will agree with the auxiliary are, or were, or do, or even have. Okay, the next type of subject is gerund as subject. When we deal with gerund as subject, we will deal with verb ing in the beginning of the sentence. But the verb ing is not an action verb, but this is a noun because gerund is a noun. The physical appearance is verb ing, but it is functioning as a noun. When there is only one gerund appearing in the beginning of the sentence, it means it is singular gerund subject. So it agrees with the auxiliary singular like is, was, does, and has. The example, like in the sentence, saying is easy, but doing is difficult. The word saying is only one gerund subject. That's why we use is. And doing is difficult also. But when there are series of gerund appearing in a sentence, so we can regard them as plural subject, the same as they. Like singing, reading, and writing, there are 3 appearances of gerund. It is the same as they. That's why we use are or were or do or have as the auxiliary to agree with each other. For example, singing, reading, and writing are my hobbies. You see, there are 3 gerund subject, the same as they. That's why we use auxiliary are to agree with the gerund subject, the plural gerund subject in this case. Okay? Okay, now we talk about the 5th kind of subject that is called impersonal subject. And there are 2 types of impersonal subject. The first is it and then there. Why should it be called impersonal subject? Because it doesn't refer to anything. It doesn't refer to anyone, even though it is a subject, but it doesn't replace anything, just like the common function of a pronoun. For example, it is hard to say goodbye. The word it doesn't refer to anything. It's just a beginning of a sentence. So, since it is singular, so we use the auxiliary is or was or does or has as the auxiliary that agree with the subject it. Compare the use of it in this sentence. I have a cat. It is black. So the word it refers to the cat. But in this case, impersonal subject is different. It doesn't refer to anything. It's just a beginning of a sentence because we have 2 ways of saying. The first, to say goodbye is hard. But we can also say, it is hard to say goodbye. So the word it doesn't refer to anything because it is impersonal. And then the second is the word there. Some Indonesian students interpret the word there as di sana, but actually it can have the meaning of impersonal because it doesn't refer to di sana. For example, the sentence, there is a boy in the car. There is a boy in the car comes from the origin sentence, a boy is in the car. Okay, but sometimes we can begin something or in English way to say by using there is a boy in the car. Or there are 40 students in the class. So the word there can be followed by either singular or plural auxiliary verbs depending on the noun that is following. In the first sentence, there is a boy, so there is a boy, singular, so we use there is. But when we come to the second sentence, 40 students. 40 students are the same as they. So we use are. There are 40 students in the class. Some Indonesian students ignore this. They just say, there is 40 students. Of course, it doesn't agree with the subject, 40 students. So it is actually a very simple thing, but we don't give a careful attention to the sentence. That's why we make mistakes. So be extra careful in this type of impersonal subject. Okay, good luck for your exercise. Thank you very much for your attention. Goodbye. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Terima kasih sudah menyaksikan video pembelajaran ini. Jangan lupa like, komen dan subscribe, serta nyalakan tanda loncengnya agar kalian tidak ketinggalan informasi update lainnya. I hate body.